Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley is a 6'11", 4-5 hybrid, let's call him. He's already averaging 16 points, 9 rebounds. He's already one of the 3 or 4 best defenders in the NBA when he's on the court. He's been a positive player in terms of EPM all 3 seasons that he's been in the NBA, largely because of that defensive impact. Let's start here. I think he is probably one of the 2 best, maybe 3 best help defenders in the NBA right now. I think his instincts in terms of flying around and just like covering for his teammates whenever, somebody gets beat off the bounce or he has to make like a crazy scramble situation rotation. I think he is so good at that I would say he's already one of the 3 or so best in the league. Where do you kind of fall on that?
What, AD, Jaren?
Yeah. AD and Jaren were the 2 I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd have to go through rosters. Those were the 2 names off the top of my head.
Yeah. Those were the 2 that immediately came to my mind when I thought about it. But that's the class that Evan is in on defense.
Sure. Yeah.
He is a staggering player. And oh, by the way, really sharp rim protector, really, really sharp as a switchable defender. Like the Cavs will switch him fairly regularly, right? Like, especially when he's playing the 4 next to Jared Allen, like we're looking at it on screen right now. Like, they switch him on to Jaylen Brown. Jaylen gets him with a hesitation. He ends up recovering for a, blocked shot on the drive. He is a fantastic, fantastic, fantastic defender across the board. What is the offense is really the question here. And that's the ceiling for Evan Mobley on a list like this is quite high if the offense and the ball handling and the shooting ever come along. But my concern with that is we just haven't really seen any growth there yet. That's my main worry. Like, we haven't seen him take an enormous leap forward there. I felt like his improvement from 2-point range this season was a lot more due to, they like found him as a roller a little bit more often, right? Like he played in ball screens a bit more often than, was early on. Like he was in the dunker spot and they'd hit him like in the spot up or like in the mid post, and he'd drive and would take like a little floater or take like mid-range jumpers. I thought his shot selection was a little bit better this year. I don't know if like the skill set showed like a ton of growth this year either.
Yeah. And there were times where I would watch and I didn't see the confidence and aggressiveness even that I wanted to see from him, or he would come out and listen, I can hear people screaming at me, whenever you have the guy we mentioned earlier, Garland and Donovan Mitchell, but maybe all those opportunities aren't always there. Like I get it. I understand it, but he should definitely be the 3rd offensive option in terms of scoring when he's on the floor. And those 2, I don't know what the minutes are, but I assume he played some minutes where it was just one of those 2 on the floor with him. I know they had to play some big stretches this year, but I just found myself wanting him to stay more confident, more aggressive throughout the game. I think he's a decent passer. His assist numbers went up a little bit this year, but field goal attempts.
That actually might be the area where he showed growth.
Yeah,
I think the passing got better this year. That's a good point, Bryce.
I had quite a few notes about, made some nice reads and all of that, but the field goal attempts actually went down. The 3-point attempts actually went down. The free throw attempts actually went down. That's not the trajectory. I'm not saying it had to balloon some crazy jump, but I would have liked to see a little bit more. And I think some of it was just confidence, aggressiveness, and just kind of his mentality on that end. There's nothing wrong with what he is defensively and how impressive and how impactful he is. But to have him higher on this list after 3 years, I guess, I would have liked to see a little bit more to have a belief that he's the 2nd option on this team at some point offensively. And I don't know that I've seen enough to believe that. He may be the 2nd best overall player because of the defense. I don't know that he's the 2nd option offensively. Like, I just feel like there's a little bit of a limitation right there, a little bit because of the skill set. I just feel like there's a little bit of the mentality as well for him.
It is interesting trying to figure out, like, is it mentality? Is it spacing? Is it that like in his second season, they went out and acquired Donovan Mitchell. So there are just naturally fewer
Sure. Yeah.
on ball reps than what were, could be available for a different player in a different kind of situation. Right.
Sure.
Trying to kind of run through that is hard. There's a lot of contextual factors that I think go along with that. The thing that I see when I watch Mobley is that it is just really hard for him to like move anybody.
Yeah.
On offense. I think he absorbs contact really well on the defensive end and is capable of like holding his ground. But there's a difference between like being able to like stay steady and like hold your ground once you have the position and actually gain the position.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like gain that ability to get to your spot. And I think that he doesn't often do that well enough is kind of where I sit on it. And I worry, okay, if we think he just has this like naturally pretty thin frame, right? Which I think is pretty reasonable. Like Anthony Davis has always been the hope for him. Anthony Davis has always had like wider, massive shoulders.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that allowed him in his frame to like really fill out in a way that made sense. Mobley has like those kind of like, slighter shoulders, let's say comparatively. And I wonder if it might be a little bit harder for him to put on weight that allows him to maintain what makes him so special in terms of his mobility. Like I'm sure he could add weight and get up to 240 pounds. Anybody can get fat. Like as you get older, you know that, right? Like you can put on weight with ease, but the key is maintaining that ability to move and to be flexible and to have the lateral ability that he has that makes him so special on defense. And I'm not saying he can't do it. Like he might be able to do it. It is just like a little bit concerning that he's 23 years old and we haven't seen it quite yet at this point.
Yeah. No, that's my holdup here, not having him any higher. And maybe it is. Maybe it will take the Cavs forcing his hand or him feeling like he's in that role if the moves ever do happen. Or who knows? Maybe we will see, a new coach come in Kenny Atkinson, and he'll unlock it, right? I mean, this is
Totally
why you bring Kenny Atkinson to Cleveland is you believe between Allen and Mobley, your defense is going to stay steady enough and Atkinson's going to unlock something new. I don't know that it's with Mitchell. I thought Allen made some really interesting strides anyway. It would be the combination of that backcourt. And I think the biggest thing can he unlock something in Mobley that JB and staff just weren't, quite able to?
Yeah. And look, like, even if that doesn't happen, right? Like, even if we end up in a circumstance where Evan Mobley is what he is now, or like is, 15% better than what he is now, as opposed to like getting drastically better than what he is now. And that ceiling still exists 100%. Even if he is that, he's still one of the 3 best defenders overall in the league in his prime. He's already, been top 3 in defensive player of the year. If he is as good a bet as anybody outside of Victor Wembanyama to be defensive player of the year next year. Right.
Sure.
Like him, Jaren Jackson, Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis, and Victor Wembanyama. Like those are the 5. If you're picking defensive player of the year, I'd imagine, I haven't looked at the betting odds. I would imagine those are the top 5 in betting odds right now. He's already great on that end. He's already a great basketball player. No matter what he does moving forward, he's going to be great for the next like 5-6 years, for as long as the athleticism holds up. To get higher on this list, I think that he needs to continue to showcase very real improvement as a ball handler and needs to be able to shoot. We saw some of the flashes of the shooting in the playoffs at times. He looked a little bit more comfortable. But if he doesn't do that, it then becomes a little bit more complicated in terms of roster building around him. Because if he doesn't get super, super strong, if the frame is kind of what we think it is, he might be a little bit better off at the 4. which means you have to find like a spacing 5. And those guys are just, as we've talked about throughout this summer, really, really hard to find.
Yeah.
So might just be like a little bit of a trickier roster fit for Evan Mobley than it is also for some of the guys above him.
And I think that's where my ranking ultimately, and maybe this is unfair to Evan, is I'm not projecting that offensive role to grow. And so I kind of settled into this spot because that's, I guess my projection is that it's not going to get to the level we're kind of discussing and what we would like to see. So I settled into this, 15. I think I had him ranked at 16 on my personal, board or whatever. So this was right in the same range. I don't know that either of us varied a whole heck of a lot on most of these guys when we, a few spots here and there, but for the most part, it was pretty close.
There were a few we had like a pretty drastic difference on, but I was right around like 15 for Mobley.
Yep.